Some say that the 1990s was relatively devoid of political and social upheaval, and that the music of the 90s focused more on personal angst and on social issues. The reality is that the 90s produced a fair share of protest anthems. The early 90s could be considered part of the golden age of socially conscious hip-hop, addressing systemic issues that are still relevant. You also had the development of the Riot Girl movement and members of the Old Guard preserving traditional forms of protest music. Right now, we will consider the 10 best protest songs of the 90s. Number 10, Icelaw on the Go, Billy Bragg and Wilco. Icelaw on the Go is from the 1998 Billy Bragg and Wilco collaboration, Mill-Made Avenue. The project was organized by Noah Guthrie, father of one of the founding fathers of socially conscious music, Woody Guthrie. At the time of Woody's death, he had a number of incomplete songs written with lyrics, but no music. So Noah approached Billy Bragg about completing these tunes, and Bragg in turn recruited alt-country pioneers Wilco. Icelaw on the Go is a song that protests Hans Heislow's deportation during the Cold War. Icelaw was a German composer who sought refuge in the US because his music was considered anti-Nazi. But he ended up being one of the first artists placed on the blacklist and eventually deported during the hysteria of the Cold War period. Even though the Cold War has passed, the song's message about political hysteria and racial profiling is still relevant. Number 9, Youth Against Fascism, Sonic Youth. Youth Against Fascism is from Sonic Youth's 1992 album, Dirty. Sonic Youth was one of the most influential indie and alternative bands of all time. Even though they may not have been as overtly political as other underground bands, they did record their share of socially conscious songs. Youth Against Fascism has a powerful anti-fascist and anti-racist message, while also protesting against religious hypocrisy. Number 8, Big 3 Killed My Baby, The White Stripes. This is from the White Stripes' 1999 self-titled debut. Due to Jack White's feelings that music isn't an effective platform for politicizing, The Big 3 Killed My Baby is one of the few socially conscious songs that Jack White has written. The Big 3 refer to the 3 major American car manufacturers of the 50s and 60s, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. The song attacks the fall of labor unions and the negative effect this has had on the American economy. During the 2000s, the band has modified the lyrics during live performances to address the war in Iraq. Bush's hands are red, and I found out your baby is dead. Number 7, By the Time I Get to Arizona, Public Enemy. This hard-hitting tune from the album Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Black, is in response to the fact that in 1990, Arizona voted against recognizing Martin Luther King Day as a federal holiday. The lyrics continue to resonate in later years in light of Arizona's anti-immigration policies. Number 6. Black Boys on Mopeds, Sinead O'Connor. Black Boys on Mopeds is from Sinead O'Connor's 1990 landmark album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. O'Connor was one of the most political and controversial music artists of the 90s. This was due partly to the notorious incident of her ripping up a photo of Pope John Paul II to protest the way that the Roman Catholic Church handled cases of child abuse, and she did this during an October 3rd, 1992 episode of Saturday Night Live. Black Boys on Mopeds was an anti-Margaret Thatcher protest song with strong anti-racist sentiments. It made reference to a 1989 incident involving Nicholas Bramble, a black youth who was killed while trying to evade police who wrongly suspected him of stealing the moped he was riding. Systemic racism and police brutality are issues that are sadly still prevalent. Number 5. The Ghost of Tom Joad, Bruce Springsteen. The title track of Springsteen's 1995 album gives the story of Tom Joad a modern reworking. Joad is the protagonist from John Steinbeck's 1939 classic novel, The Grapes of Wrath, and he is often viewed as symbolic of the fight for social justice. Springsteen received inspiration through Woody Guthrie's Tom Joad Part 1 and 2, which appeared on Guthrie's classic 1940 album, Dust Bowl Ballads. Springsteen effectively builds on folk traditions to link the past with the present. A heavier and more aggressive version of the song was also recorded by Rage Against the Machine. Rage's guitarist Tom Morello has also performed this song with Bruce Springsteen on a few occasions, as well as appearing on the re-recorded version on Springsteen's 2014 album, High Hopes. Number 4. Rebel Gill, Bikini Kill. Not only did Bikini Kill play a pivotal role in pioneering the 90s riot girl movement, but with Rebel Girl, it composed what could easily be considered a theme song of the movement. This scorching feminist anthem challenges the heterosexual patriarchal structure which was evident in much of the alternative rock of the 90s. Number 3. To the Teeth, Annie DeFranco. To the Teeth is the title track from DeFranco's 1999 album. DeFranco, who has established herself as a feminist icon, was one of the most compelling, socially conscious singers to emerge from the 90s. To the Teeth serves as a mournful indictment of American gun culture in the wake the Columbine High School shooting massacre. DeFranco clearly highlights that politicians are willing to sacrifice human life in exchange for the gun lobby's blood money. Sadly, the message still resonates, but the increase of youth activism offers the possibility of hope. Number 2, Brendas Got a Baby, Tupac. Tupac isn't the first rapper to get political with their music, but he was one of the first male rappers to empathetically explore the challenges specifically dealt with by black women. Two notable examples were Brendas Got a Baby off his debut album Apocalypse Now and his 1993 hit Keep Ya Head Up. Tupac was motivated to write Brendas Got a Baby after reading a news story about a 12-year-old girl becoming impregnated by her cousin, and she ended up throwing the baby into a trash compactor. In Tupac's lyrical retelling, 12-year-old Brenda initially tries to dispose of the baby, but changes her mind. Tupac examines the systemic ills which made it difficult for Brenda to look after her baby. The tragic narrative addresses issues such as broken family structures and society's ineffectiveness in adequately addressing generational poverty. Number 1, Killing in the Name, Rage Against the Machine. When it comes to political music, very few bands were as aggressively political as Rage Against the Machine. Killing in the Name, off their 1992 self-titled debut, is a prime exhibit of their Take No Prisoners musical and lyrical approach. This anthem of the disenfranchised takes pointed aim at racism, incidences of police brutality, and the rallying against the military-industrial complex. This song was released about 6 months after the 1992 Los Angeles riots, which were in response to the acquittal of the police officers who were involved in the brutal beating of Rodney King. The situation of racist cops is succinctly expressed with the lyric, "Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses." During live performances, Zach De La Roca sometimes changes the words, "Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses," to "Some of those that burn crosses are the same that hold office." In 2009, there was a UK Facebook campaign to encourage people to download the song so it become the #1 song during the Christmas week, instead of the traditional X Factor winner. And it became the first UK #1 based solely on downloads. Rage Against the Machine played a free thank you gig for over 40,000 fans and presented the proceeds of the downloads to charity. It was definitely a way that the band could subvert the system from within. But this concludes the list of the 10 best protest songs of the 90s. So what were your favorite protest songs from the 90s? Feel free to protest the list in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. For additional content on the historical developments of protest music, check out the website ongoinghistoryofprotestsongs.com and the companion podcast Ongoing History of Protest Music. Thanks for listening, and please stay safe.